Chapter 116, The Raiders. Greetings. Hi. I'm looking for a friend. Do you know his room number, please? 9039. I'll get you through. Boom. Before the dialogue between Lin and the front desk ended, an earth-shattering explosion came from the top of the head, and then the harsh screams of people walking around. Lin Chia's face changed without saying a word, turned and ran out of the hotel lobby, looking up at the sky. I saw the top of the tall building which stood on the clouds had turned into a sea of fire. Do not need to count Lin 7 nights to know there must be the floor of Bailey Pang Pang live. The whole hotel can trigger such an outrageous attack. He is the only one. Just when Lin Chia was ready to rush into the hotel and run up the stairs to the 90th floor, he vaguely saw that there was a touch of gold in the night sky. That's Lin Chia's eyes narrowed slightly. Without hesitation he pushed his way through the panicked crowd, carrying 2 black boxes, and ran quickly toward the place where the gold flashed. Through a road, Lin 7 Nights finally arrived near the Golden Point. Here is a remote section in the middle of the night. There are few pedestrians, vehicles are not much. Lin Chia closed his eyes and carefully explored everything around him with his mental force. Suddenly his body gave a slight shock. His face darkened as he opened his eyes and ran quickly to some narrow intersection. At the very head of the street stood a sign with 4 large characters on it. No traffic ahead. No rules airspace. Lin 7 Nights frowned tightly. This is not the 136 team opened the no-ring airspace, and used to display the no-ring airspace sign, and only the night watch team stationed in various cities have. That is to say, was there a night's watch from another city involved in this? Are they here to protect Bailey Biggie or to kill him? Lin 7 Nights feel that the probability of the former is very small. If it is to protect him, why do you happen at this time? And why would you secretly open a no-ring airspace? 800 million, enough to impress some mentally unstable watchman, even to steal the sign, betray the watchman, to take the head of 100 Li Chubby. How many are there on the other side? Did they bring the sign directly, or did they steal it from the Night's Watch? Will there be a high level of the strong? A series of questions arose in Lin Chia's mind, and he stood quietly in front of the sign, lost in thought. In or out. If he was in the past when he encountered such dangerous and unknown things, he would definitely run far and wide, but now? Perhaps even he himself did not notice. Unconsciously he has been slowly changed. What changed him? Perhaps 136 team to bring him warmth. Is the enthusiasm of Red Ing, Chimo's gentle, Captain's guard, Deputy Captain Proud Jiao Lingshuan gentle, Zhao Kongqing's determination? Or maybe it is the temper of the joys and sorrows in the training camp. Or perhaps it is the hidden in daily life, a trivial small detail. He used to have only his aunt and Ajin in his life, but now, unconsciously, he seems to have a lot more people around him. In the night, there was a firmness in his eyes, and a touch of gold gradually brightened in his eyes. 6 months ago he broke the no-ring airspace in order to save the hero who had guarded his world. Now he wants to break the no-ring airspace again, to save his friend. This is Bailey Fat look around, face rare solemn. No warning airspace. Friend or foe? What do you think? Chao Yuan's eyes fell on the street in front, under the dark night sky, the street lights on both sides of the street flickering, the distance of the asphalt road. A burly man figure is slowly coming. Also in the back. Bailey Pang Pang looked back and saw that at the other end of the street, a man with 3 knives on his back was already standing there, staring at the 2 people in front of him, his eyes full of abuse. 2 of them? No, there should be at least 1 more open outside. Chao Yuan shook his head. Bailey Pang Pang sneered twice. Since when did the Night's Watch do the work of bandits? No, we're not the Night's Watch anymore. The burly man approaching said in a low voice, we are from the Fast. A fast? 100 Fat Doubt looked to Chao Yuan. The Fast is a place where the owners of the bazaar are held for criminal offenses, half of which are former members of the Watch who have committed crimes and been expelled from the Watch. Chao Yuan's calm opening. If the Lord Commander of the Night's Watch had not rescued me and sent me to Juhua Mountain, I should be locked up there now. Turns out he just got out of jail. Biggie knows, but if you want to kill me, why blow up the hotel? What if someone else gets hurt? The man who swore an oath to protect this country is now risking people's lives for profit? Don't confuse us with those wild dogs. The man with 3 knives opened his mouth angrily. How to say that we were once night watchmen? The most basic bottom line is still there. We want to kill you just to return the favor. To whom? 100 Fat frown a pic. Don't try to fool us. All you need to know is that tonight, you can't get out of this airspace. The burly man let out a low roar, his eyes burst into a fierce light, all his muscles were violently twisted, his body size first rose half a meter and then shrank rapidly. At last he was a thin little man only a meter tall, who looked as if a gust of wind could blow him over. Conan. 100 Fat surprised to open. Forbidden Ruins Sequence 214, Body Reorganization, can freely compress their own muscle tissue, although he is now almost like a primary school student, but the speed and strength absolutely reached an extremely terrible point. Chow Yuan's eyes are full of solemn. The thin man's mouth appeared a sneer, the sole of his foot on the asphalt pavement, leaving a deep dent. The whole person is like a sharp arrow flashed half the street. A small fist in the eyes of the fat 100 miles zoom. Okay. The golden light solidified into a shield in front of his body in an instant, and the man's fist hit it without any fancy, only hearing a dull loud noise and cracks appeared above the Yao Guang shield. My goodness! Bailey Pang exclaimed. Then a whipping leg again hit the Yao light shield, directly the golden light scattered a little. Bailey Pang hurriedly put his hand into the bath towel, seemed to be picking something, while Chow Yuan shouted behind him. Won't you give me a hand? Chow Yuan holding a knife, staring at the other side of the three knife men no time. In the moonlight, the man expressionlessly pulled out a knife behind him, and the other two handles were as if they were held by an invisible hand and came out at the same time. Chapter 117. The Archer. Dong dong dong. The thin man hit the surface of Yao Guang's shield 3 times in a row, completely broke the golden light, the eyes emerged with a touch of cold, followed by an elbow to the 100-ly chubby head. However, just at the moment when his elbow was about to touch Bailey Chubby, it was like touching a layer of fire net, which automatically burned up and a large amount of skin carbonized and emerged charred. Thin man is also very hot heart under the severe pain, the elbow just paused for a moment in the middle of the air, and then attacked at a faster speed. After all, Bailey Pang, who had been beaten by countless people in melee class, saw this elbow blow whistling in, and lightning-like rolled to the side to avoid it. At that moment he finally pulled out a large bright sword from the towel. Ouch 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 ouch. Almost cut. Bailey's fat face turned blue, took the big sword in his hand, and threw it at the thin man who rushed forward at speed. Sword light across the air 12244. A moment later the sky of sword light like a vast river rolled forward. The thin man's face sank and he retreated like lightning, avoiding the blow. Just as he was about to go on the attack, a terrible breath rose up. Stunned, he looked back and saw a humanoid monster standing on another street with a black flame swirling around it, holding a straight knife and overflowing with murder. In front of the monster the three-knife man swallowed. What the fuck is this? Swish. Mad Chow Yuan, heavy pupil red, rushed over 100 meters in an instant, the hand of the straight knife wrapped with fierce black inflammation, suddenly swinging down. 3 knife men by the face of this roll of the breath out of a cold sweat, do not want to think, suddenly raised the blade of the hand, the other 2 suspended blade also across the head and Chow Yuan's knife collision together. Zap. Sharp friction sound, 3 knife men only feel a huge force from the top of the head, the foot of the road inch crumbled, the body of the bones are in pain buzz. After the promotion of the pool, Sun's breath seemed heavier, and the crazy strength of the body was more rampant, and the straight knife of the hand was brandished by him one after another like a blacksmith, in the mad temper of the hand's iron. Dang 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 dang. Straight knife crazy hit on the knife of 3 knife men's hands, accompanied by Chow Yuan rampant smile, 3 knife men legs a soft, half kneeling to the ground, at the same time a life and death crisis over the heart. I do not know where the strength came from, his legs suddenly pushed off to the side, the whole person rolled half a circle, and avoided Chow Yuan's straight knife. Chow Yuan knife cut on the ground, splashed a lot of slag, 3 knife men stumbled to the ground while spit out a blood. What kind of monster is this? 3 knife male panic opening, he suddenly turned his head to the distance, shouted, "Do not hand, Lao Zi will die." Whoosh. His voice fell, a feather arrow quietly across the night sky, with the naked eye cannot capture the speed, flying to Cao Yun's face. Crazy Chow Yuan heavy pupil shrinkage, the hand straight knife suddenly swung out, precision cut on the arrow tip, but the next moment he even people with a knife by this arrow directly blasted into the building behind. Hundreds of meters away on a tall building, A woman with a bow and arrow snorted. Catch my arrows with your bare hands? I'll kill you then. Then she drew 3 more arrows from the quiver behind her and shot them in succession. Whoosh. 3 consecutive arrows into the Chaoyuan was blasted into the building. The first arrow will thoroughly blast the low building into slag. The second arrow will blast the ground out of a radius of 10 meters of the big pit. The third arrow flew over the dust, forcing Chaoyuan heart. Crazy Chaoyuan suddenly opened the mouth, issued a deafening roar. The whole body of breath like a flood beast poured out, gathered into a black knife gang, chopping the arrow in the air. Dao Gang and Yujian collide in midair, shaking out an invisible ripple. In front of Jiqi Dao Gang, Yujian's arrow body cracked inch by inch and finally dissipated in the air. On the roof, the female archer frowned slightly and pulled out an arrow from the quiver with her back hand. Well, if I can't shoot you, I'll shoot the fat one. I'll see how many arrows he can stop me. Meaning? Which fat kid are you gonna shoot? A indifferent male voice sounded from behind her. The female archer's pupils suddenly contracted. Without thinking, lightning curved bow and arrow, pointing behind their own. Unfortunately, as soon as her fingertips touched the arrows, a touch of extreme darkness enveloped everything around her, making her feel like falling through ice. The next moment, the arrow at her fingertips fluttered out, whirled once in midair, and landed in the hands of a young man in a black gentleman's hat. The moonlight fell on the brim of his hat and the shadow covered his face. The boy played with his arrow and shook his head in disappointment. Arrows are nothing special, so the problem is your forbidden market. The archwoman's eyes widened in disbelief. No way. No one can come behind me silently under my vigilance. Is he a ghost? As an archer, absolute vigilance of her surroundings is a must for her, and she can hear even an ant crawling within a few meters of her. But this time, she did not hear the boy's footsteps. She naturally did not know that under the addition of the starry night dancer in the pond, the hidden ability of Lin 7 Nights in the Dark has reached a state of horror. Even now, Lin 7 Nights to become an assassin is definitely the top kind. With a flick of Lin Chia's fingers, the arrows slowly floated between the eyebrows of the female archers, only half a minute short of piercing them. How many of you are here? How did you get into the no-ring zone? Where's Old Man Han? Asked the archwoman, frowning. Lin Chia's eyebrows slightly narrowed, fingers slightly hooked, the arrow tip of the arrow into the female archer's eyebrows slightly, oozing wisps of blood. Now I seem to be asking you. Lin 7 Nights paused. Of course, if you are asking the old man of the sea, then I can only regret to tell you that he has been killed by me. The female archer stared at Lin Chia's eyes and after a while opened with a sneer. I get it. You're the two-god agent we've never seen before. You finally show your face. I see you don't want to answer my questions. Lin Chia's eyes slightly narrowed, eyes emerged with a touch of cold in this case, then as my experiment. After saying that, his eyes were suddenly stained with darkness, and the temperament of the whole person was profound. The next moment, the night gradually crept into the female archer's eyes. Chapter 118. One cut. A dash. The terrible screams echoed in the night sky, and the 3 knife men and thin men who were fighting turned their heads at the same time to look at the direction of the female archer, and their eyes emerged with a shock. Where another enemy? On the roof. The female archer's eyes have completely fallen into black. She is half kneeling on the ground in pain, hands cannot control the control of their own scalp, as if trying to drive something out of their mind. Blood trickled down from the top of her head. Her mouth opened wide and she vomited black blood, darkening her body at a speed visible to the naked eye. Ah, what did you do? There. She held her head in pain, suddenly looked up to Lin Chia and shouted. Lin Kinite looked at the female archer's misery, frowning slightly, and reached out to touch his chin. Dark erosion works poorly on intelligent beings. The higher the wisdom, the more difficult to erode. According to my current state of view, at most can only control cats and dogs. The effect on people is very general. At this time, the female archer's eyes suddenly broke out a fine surging spiritual force burst out. Eyes of the night like the tide receded. She stood up in a flash and stumbled backward. Lin Chia's stuffy hum also back a few steps with his hand on the forehead, frowning tightly. The mental force can break free to the dark erosion. The higher the state of the other side, the greater the bite on me. She should also be the mental force of the pond. Otherwise, just that moment I can be stunned. It seems that it is not yet possible to use dark erosion on people and control their minds. The female archer fell straight from the roof, but how can it be said that once the night watchman, even if seriously injured in the body, the skill is still agile? See her lightning from the back of the quiver pulled out an arrow, stabbed into the hard wall of the building, hard to slow down the speed of fall. Then rely on the inertia generated by the natural swing of the body, roll 2 circles on the lawn at the bottom of the building, barely stand upright and bend the bow and arrow quickly. Whoosh! An arrow shot out, carrying the power of terror, accurately flashed to the place where Lin Seven Knights stood. Lin Kaiite's brow rose slightly as if he fully anticipated the flight path of the arrow, gently tilted his head sideways, and the arrow brushed his hair over his ear but failed to hurt him. The female archer was stunned. Lin Chia carried the black box in one hand, and gently held the gentleman's hat on his head with the other hand. The wind brushed the corner of his coat, and the corners of his mouth curled into a light arc. He stepped forward and jumped gently from the roof. He did not use something to slow his fall like a female archer, but he fell freely, his toes counted lightly on the wall of the building, like a ghost in the middle of the night, fluttered across the distance of the floor and landed firmly on the ground. This series of movements like flowing water, like a black cat jumping off the cabinet at home, elegant and easy. This is the starry night dancer of the pond. At last I could just jump off a building. Lin Seven Knights thought of that day in the school to catch difficult snake demon, can only run down the stairs when the scene of distress, self-deprecating smile. You man or ghost? Seeing this, the female archer's scalp tingled directly, and without another word she turned and ran back toward the convoluted street. While running, he reached out to take an arrow from the arrow pot, curved bow and arrow, reflexive shooting to Lin Seven Knights. The movement is extremely smooth. Whoosh! A few consecutive arrows flew out. Lin Seven Knights, unhurried, like a leisurely walk pedestrian, easily avoided all arrows. The perception and dynamic vision brought by the 100 meters of the earth and God domain, coupled with the starry night dancer, is no joke. The female archer saw this scene, gnashed her teeth, simply pulled out 3 arrows together on the bow, aimed after flying out. 3 arrows were in the shape of the air, completely blocked the Forest Seven Knights' all-go space. The tip of the arrow is like a big net towards the Forest Seven Knights' cover. Lin Seven Knights pressed the gentleman's hat on his head, a touch of extreme darkness with him as the heart spread out on all sides. The next moment the 3 arrows were stuck in the dark and could not be saved. Lin Chia can take hundreds of missile fragments in half a second, and catch these 3 arrows is a piece of cake. With a gentle wave of his hand, the 3 arrows turned and shot at the female archer. However, because the arrow is not shot from the female archer, it is not so strong kinetic energy, coupled with his kindergarten level of shooting, the 3 arrows have long been unknown where to go. Archwoman. Lin Seven Knights sighed, decided to kill the mouth, cannot expose their amazing shooting talent. He pressed his finger lightly on the handle of the black box, and with a small sound, a straight knife with a sheath popped out of the side of the black box. Lin Chia reached out his hand and grasped the knife. Victor. There was a clear buzz and the sword came out of its sheath. Lin Chia's eyes narrowed slightly, holding a knife in one hand. The whole person was approaching the female archer like a ghost, and the speed was completely different from before. The female archers pressed their lips and even sent a number of arrows, but they were easily avoided by Lin Seven Knights. Under the light and dark street lights, Lin Chia's figure was like a ghost, and the light blue blade cut a straight mark on the dim street, and she came to the female archer in an instant. The female archer's pupils suddenly constricted. A spatula flashed and blood poured out in all directions. Lin Chia's expressionless face walked past the female archer's side, put the knife into the sheath. Plops. The woman archer with her throat cut fell to the ground. The pool of blood gradually spread. The same as the pond. Lin Seven Knights to kill her, just a knife, just a knife. This is not only the gap in the forbidden market more or the gap in the arms. If the battle between the mad Chao Yuan and the 3 Knives men is the berserker pressed the assassin, then she met Lin Seven Knights just like the brutal archer met the assassin in the face of high agility, no fight back. As for 100 fat and skinny men, maybe this is the battle between Doraemon and the fat tiger. Lin Chia picked up the black box on the ground, slightly lifted the black gentleman's hat, looked at the distance where the explosions came one after another and sighed helplessly. I'm gonna have to beat that black maniac back in later. He shook his head, took the 2 black boxes and walked off into the night street. At the same time, hundreds of miles away in another tall building, Lung Xuan slowly moved away the sniper mirror in front of the eyes, looking at the direction of Lin Seven Knight's left. The corners of the mouth appeared a light smile. Nice. Chapter 119. Chao Yuan the Lock. Thunk. The thin man's foot shattered the asphalt floor, leaving a deep pit covered with spider marks, and Bailey Chubby staggered away with bare feet, screamed twice and waved the big sword again. The shadow of the sword, like a dragon, swept across the earth. The thin man jumped 4 or 5 stories high to avoid the shadow of the sword and then fell lightly, stopping steadily at the top of the street lamp. Bailey Pang Pang heard a series of explosions in the distance, and his eyes gradually lit up. Tao Yuan. Hang on a little longer, help will come. Bailey Fat see in the distance. The mad devil Chao Yuan has 3 knife men nailed to the ground, while grinning with a knife to dismember him. Blood splashed on his face. How to see how like a perverted killer. This scene cannot help but make Bailey Pang Pang wonder who is the real villain. Chao Yuan is completely out of reason, even if he has 3 knife men cut to death can no longer die, still immersed in the fun of slaughter, did not think to help 100ly fat. In fact, it's a good thing he didn't chop up Biggie. It's useless. Thin man saw 3 knife man's tragedy, cursed a voice, the offensive more severe. But no matter how he attacked, the seemingly clumsy Bailey Pang Pang was like a flexible loach, always able to avoid his attack, and then backhanded with a bunch of strange things to disgust him half to death. Tally ho! Look at my mighty mirror. Bailey Pang Pang backhanded from the bath towel took out a simple shape of the round mirror, toward the thin man to shine. The mirror reflected the moonlight to the thin man's face, his body suddenly a meal. At the moment, the thin man only felt that his brain had been severely hit by a hammer. The whole brain was buzzing and his face was suddenly pale as paper. Mental attack. He barely stood still and looked at Bailey's chubby eyes full of anger. Before he made any moves, Bailey Chubby smiled and waved the big sword again. The dense shadow of the sword directly submerged the thin man's body, a large cloud of smoke everywhere. 100 fat one hand in the waist standing there. Druddy touched the nose, hum a sound, a small pond, ridiculous. As soon as he spoke, a figure appeared behind him like a ghost. Half of the thin man's body was dripping with blood, and his expression was ferocious, like he was going to eat Bailey Pang Pang alive. He raised his right hand high and cut it off at the back of 100's fat neck. 100 fat only feel a cold back of the head. The secret way is not good, is to avoid in a hurry. A dull hum came from behind him. I saw a man dressed in black and wearing a gentleman's hat who did not know when he had touched him behind, holding a straight knife. The tip of the knife pierced the thin man's heart, and the blood trickled down the tip of the knife. The thin man turned his head and saw the face covered in the shadow, opened his mouth and seemed to want to say something, but the man simply pulled out the knife, and the blood splattered under. The thin man completely cut off his breath. 100 fat sea people, surprise open. 7 knights. You came too? Lin Chia put the straight knife into the sheath and shrugged his shoulders. I just want to come and have a look, simply do the host's friendship, who knows just. Lin Chia's eyes fell in the distance, frowning slightly. Come on, let's get rid of that guy first. Bailey fat one lung turned to look. I do not know when Chao Yuan has stood up from the pool of blood, shoulder with black inflammation of the straight knife blade body, smiling toward the 2 people, the sky. Good thing you're here or I wouldn't have beaten this guy. 100 fat looked like the devil. Chao Yuan couldn't help but shake. After advancing to the pond, his forbidden market seemed stronger and more vicious. Lin Chia said with a frown, reaching out his hand toward Bailey Pang Pang, sealing the volume. 100 fat reach out for a while, the tape to Lin Seven Knight's helpless sigh. In the future this thing is still called Chao Yuan Chastity Lock, more appropriate. Lin Chia's mouth slightly twitched, right hand holding a straight knife, left hand wrapped in tape. A touch of darkness to his heart spread. Crazy Chao Yuan seems to smell the dark breath, action more cautious up. He stared at the dark central forest. 7 knights, stopped the pace, seems to be hesitant to come forward. Lin Seven Knights frown a pick, figure like ghosts to mad Chao Yuan rushed. Since the mad Chao Yuan sensed the danger of the dark god ruins and did not want to approach, he took the initiative to rush forward and pull him into the distance. Crazy Chao Yuan see Lin Seven Knights actually take the initiative to attack. Directly as a provocation after a roar, meet Lin Seven Knights ran in the past. Dang. To the dark god ruins, Lin Seven Knights and Crazy Chao Yuan continuously cut dozens of knives, Sparks splashed. Under the chi package, the darkest erosion of Lin's 7 Nights cannot erode control anything on Chaoyuan, and can only rely on the passive addition of Star Dancer and the advanced Earth and God domain to fight with it. But the promotion pool of the Black King is also outrageous. Whether it is the heart-palpitating flame or the crazy battle mode, it is enough to become a nightmare for anyone of the same level. After a brief stalemate, Crazy Chaoyuan even easily will Lin's 7 Nights' offensive pressure down the upper hand. Ho 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 dash. Mad Chaoyuan roar to the hand of the knife faster, Lin's 7 Nights while struggling to resist his attack frowning slightly. The next moment, a dazzling golden on burst from his eyes. The divine way of the blazing angel is indeed the nemesis of the mad devil Chaoyuan. Lin's 7 Nights is only so glared at a glance. Xiaoyun's breath was shaken out of the majority, the whole person staggered backwards. Lin's 7 Nights without the slightest hesitation, the hand of Chaoyuan chastity lock spread, fast locked Xiaoyun's body, and then flash behind him hand pull tape suddenly force. Boom. Lin's 7 Nights rely on the dark night under the strong body, directly will mad Chaoyuan over the shoulder to fly. Crashed into a nearby low building. Billowing smoke, Lin Chia holding a straight knife stood there, squinting at the low building. After a while, Chaoyuan, who had recovered his human form, climbed out of the window with difficulty, coughed a few times and slowly removed the tape from his neck with his hands. 7 Nights, next time could you be a little lighter? Chaoyuan rubbed out the neck of the impression, looking at Lin's 7 Nights' wronged opening. You cut me pretty hard back there. Lin's 7 Nights' expressionless knife into the sheath slowly said. Got a grudge? Lin Chia did not answer his question but looked up at the sky. At this time, no ring airspace has been cracked. The sky above the burning hotel top floor has not the slightest trace of extinguishment. The battle of the instructors is still going on, and now they should be fighting the enemy in Sichuan. Good thing we jumped right off. Chaoyuan looked at this scene and sighed. Lin Chia picked up the black box on the ground and turned and walked toward the other side of the street. That's not the kind of enemy we can fight, and rather than just stand here and increase the risk of exposure. Go eat a bowl of noodles. Chapter 120. The Transaction. A bowl of shredded pork noodles. A bowl of noodles. A bowl of braised beef noodles with steak and vegetarian chicken and shredded meat and egg and dried sesame noodles. 3 people in the noodle shop randomly found a position to sit down. The location of the noodle shop is very remote, far from the road does not say, and the signs are tattered but the fragrance from inside but can smell far away. Now it is more than 10 o'clock in the evening. The whole noodle shop is only Lin Chia. They have a table. They did not choose to sit in the dim facade, but sat down on the small table at the door of the noodle shop. The quiet and dim laneway, the little bright light from the kitchen, mixed with the colorful neon lights of the adult products store next door, sprinkled on the small blue-gray desktop in this noisy city, is also considered to have a different flavor. What you said about eating noodles. Is this the place to eat? 100 fat look around a circle. Come to the ear of Lin's 7 Nights, whispered ridicule. In our situation, can I take you to the Grand Hotel? Lin's 7 Nights rolled his eyes, and had to choose this corner where no one came so that we could eat a meal in peace. So, or 7 Nights you see the long term. And I only have enough money to buy you guys noodles here. Rest assured, although the store doesn't look very good, the noodles are absolutely superb. Lin's 7 Nights added a sentence. After a while, 3 bowls of steaming noodles were served on the small table. In the middle of the night, the aroma of concentrated alcohol seemed so plain and amazing. How much is the total, sir? Lin's 7 Nights took out his wallet. Pork noodles 10 yuan, big noodles 12, and this young man's $42. $64 in all. The boss smiled and held out his hand. Lin Chia's hand suddenly stopped in midair. He pays for himself. Lin's 7 Nights from the wallet took out a 22 pieces of coin, handed over to the boss, and then pointed to the fat 100 fat said. 100 fat tiger body a shock. 7 Nights, you didn't say please me. I've changed my mind. Billapang, wait a minute. Boss, do you guys take credit cards? In the end, Chaoyuan took out a crumpled 50 piece of paper money and paid the dough for Bailey Fat, but in exchange Bailey Fat to pack his food and lodging for these days. This is really not Lin's 7 Nights stingy. This time out he brought a total of 50 pieces, thinking about eating noodles, how to eat enough, did not expect. Prick. 3 people while eating noodles while discussing the battle just. So you were just blindsided? They blew up 90 floors with precision? Lin 7 Nights, after listening to the description of two people, frowning, said. Yeah, can't you see I'm still wearing a towel? Bailey Fat pointed to the tattered bath towel, crying and laughing, but they should be using some kind of forbidden mass destruction, not heat weapons. To do that, at least in the river, you were right to jump out of the building, and once they caught you in shape you wouldn't be able to escape, you'd just be caught up in the fight with your instructors. Lin 7 Nights analysis. You live too ostentatiously. Chow Yuan interjected. Check in this kind of hotel, all need to register identity as long as a person can know your whereabouts. Bailey Pang muttered. I'm used to it. When I'm in Guangshan I always stay in better hotels than this. This is Tsongnan, not your hundredly family's world. However, I have been assassinated 100 times, if not 1,000 times, and such a degree of assassination is trivial. Bailey Pang did not care much about the wave of hands. Chow Yuan shrugged his shoulders. It seems that when the rich son is not so easy things. As they spoke, for more figures came in from outside. Brother Shin, we've had 2 noodles in a row. Tonight. Eating noodles again? What do you know, Face? Face is a specialty of Tsongnan, rarely come once, how to do a few meals. Shin Qingzhu with Deng Wei, Li Jia, Li Liang, 3 fundamental swagger from the outside walked in. People have not arrived, he spoke loudly. Boss, for bowls of noodle soup. You guys again? After 2 meals of noodle soup, this again? The boss saw these 4 people, surprised to open his mouth. Right. Shin Qingzhu went to the door of the store. See, sitting in that thornyo eat noodles 3 people, a direct lung. You guys. Yo, Draco's coming for noodles too? Bailey Fat mouth stuffed half a big row with Shin Qingzhu said hello. Lin 7 Nights and Chow Yuan also nodded to him. Everyone is together, experienced half a year of hell-honed comrades. Although there is no intersection in the weekdays, but there is still some friendship. Shin Qingzhu gave a sound, his eyes fell on the fragrant surface of the 3 people and he pressed his lips. Gollum. I do not know who swallowed in this quiet lane, particularly clear. Shin Qingzhu looked back at a glance. The 3 disciples bowed their heads. He looked up to the central store hanging price list. The eyes emerged tangled. Boss, change it. Bring us 3 noodles with shredded meat and 1 noodle soup. Shin Qingzhu sat down at the table next to Lin 7 Nights and shouted at the store. All right, pork noodles 10 yuan a bowl, clear soup 6 yuan, total 36. Shin Qingzhu took out his wallet, took out a few crumpled banknotes from inside, put them on the dining table and then quickly put the wallet away. Lin Chier only with a mental force sweep, he knew that his wallet has been completely empty. He's a good price. Brother Shin, why are you eating shredded pork noodles again? After eating so much clear soup, I think you should be tired, let you change your taste. What about Brother Shin? I like clear soup. Shin Qingzhu proudly looked up. Simple, pure, is the true meaning of the face. The 3 attendants looked at each other and kept their heads down. Shin Qingzhu seems to think of something, turned to look at Lin 7 Nights. By the way, you were injured in the car before, all right? Lin 7 Nights shook his head, nothing. Shin Qingzhu gave a sound, hesitated for a moment or opened his mouth. At that time, thank you. If we hadn't stopped those pieces we'd all be hurt. Draco, when did you get so polite? 100 Fat suspiciously open. Fat bastard, I always have a clear grudge, how is polite? Shin Qingzhu stared at Bailey Pang one glance, and then looked at Lin Chia, slowly opened his mouth. I know this holiday is certainly not simple, if you have any difficulties can tell me, for the sake of comrades in arms I can help. Lin 7 Nights frown a pick, the mind suddenly emerged an idea. So, I do have a business I'd like to talk to you about. Lin Kiadeo. What? Lin 7 Nights pointed to Bailey Fat said, during the holiday, personal protection of him. All the people present, including Bailey Pang were stunned. Was him? Shin Qingzhu's eyes fell on Bailey Pang body, frowning slightly. In exchange he pays you $1,000 a day in protection money. How about that? Lin 7 Nights said the next sentence. Shin Qingzhu's body shook. He looked at the eyes of Lin Chia. I do not know what to think. After a while he spoke slowly. Agreed. Then he pointed to his 3 minions, but the deal only included me, not them. Agreed. Chapter 121. The 3 Snowmen. 7 Nights, why did you send Drago to protect me? Dim Street 100 Fat to Lin 7 Nights' ear whispered asked. At this moment you and I are the targets of public criticism, so I can't stay next to you for a long time, which is more dangerous, and Chow Yuan is crazy and neither enemy nor enemy. Anyway, you have to have a normal person around you and a good one. 100 Fat after listening suddenly realized or you are smart. Shin Qingzhu stuck his hands in the pocket at the end, looking up at the stars in the sky. I do not know what to think. Suddenly he stopped. Hey fat man. He cried suddenly. Bailey Pang turned back and grinned. How to say that I am now your employer? Can you change the name? 100 Li Tu Ming. Shin Qingzhu took a deep breath, slowly opened his mouth, disgust, and gave me in advance of 1 day's wages. Bailey Fat frown. What are you doing? Don't worry about it. Just tell me if I can. 100 Fat turned to look at Lin 7 Nights. The latter nodded. But I don't have any cash. Bailey Fat scratched his head. I got $300 left. Is that enough? Chow Yuan suddenly opened the side. That's enough. Give it to me first. Shin Qingzhu nodded repeatedly. Chow Yuan will wallet only 300 pieces to Shin Qingzhu. The latter turned back to the direction of the noodle shop. Dim light, 3 people seemed to see him back to the broken noodle shop. He first said something to the boss, added a big roe and an egg to each of the 3 attendants in the bowl, and then gave all the money to Deng Wei, asked a few words and ran out quickly. Can we go? Shin Qingzhu calm opening. Lin 7 Nights. 3 people look at each other, tacit understanding to keep silent, turned towards the lane outside. The hotel was bombed. So where are we staying tonight? Bailey Pang said dejected as he walked. Chow Yuan holding a knife or just find a temple to sleep for a night? This is a modern city. Where can I find you a temple in the middle of the night? Right. Lin 7 Nights thought for a moment, slowly opened his mouth. I know a place, come with me. 3 people followed Lin Chia behind, through several unmanned paths, and finally came to a remote and shabby small hotel door. The pink and purple lights of the room shone through the windows and fell in front of the low door, where the 4 men stood, looking up at the old pink letter. Mengdai Township. A love hotel. 100 Fat see these words, only feel a tight chrysanthemum. 7 Nights. Are you serious? There are not many places in Songnan City that can be checked in without ID card registration, and this is a better environment. Lin 7 Nights frowned slightly raised. If you do not want to live, you can only go to sleep bridge. So here it is. For people push the door and enter. As Lin 7 Nights said, do not need to register identity, and the room is also a lot. When the fat is ready to directly open 3 rooms, Shin Qingzhu suddenly opened. I'll share a room with you. Bailey Pang. What? Since we agreed on personal protection, it's too risky to split up, so you take the bed, I can sleep on the floor. Shin Qingzhu seriously opened the mouth. Bailey Pang. In that case I'll live with you. Chow Yuan calm opening. 3 people just can get together a table to play landlord. It's decided. Not waiting for 100 Fat refute, Chow Yuan and Shin Qingzhu will choose a room for him. A few people go up the stairs. Every step on the floor there will be a violent creak. Climb to the 2nd floor. There is a vague, an indescribable sound came from several surrounding rooms. Shin Qingzhu alone, the face appeared a light flush, but still held his head high, swaggering forward. Chow Yuan bowed his head and said boss silently. Bailey Pang surprised to look at the 2 people. The face gradually emerged unbelievable color. Guys, aren't you all still? You're not? Joke man, when I was 7 years old I was already. Here they are. Shin Qingzhu walked to the door of a room and opened the door with the key in his hand. A faint musty smell came over his face. He frowned slightly and stepped in. The room is not big, a total of 2 beds. The overhead lights have not been cleaned for a long time, full of stains, pink lights sprinkled across the room. The atmosphere is suddenly a little subtle. 2 beds. You guys take the bed. I'll take the floor. Shin Qingzhu went to the window, carefully observed the outside for a long time, to make sure that no one monitored, closed the curtains. Bailey Pang nodded. Chow Yuan, which one do you sleep on? Bailey Pang looked at the empty corridor behind him. Light E. 1st floor. Greetings. What do you want? Excuse me, do you have, like 3 people, like really exciting, really fun stuff? Well, it's not nothing. What exactly? Playing cards. After the 100 Fat settled, Lin 7 Nights left the hotel, like a ghost in the night, quietly moving to the House of Red Ing. Unconsciously, a little snow fell from the night sky and dotted the silent streets. Lin Chia reached out his hand, gently caught a snowflake, watching it melt in the palm of his hand. After a long silence, he shook his head helplessly. Can't make a snowman with you this year, Jean. In 10 minutes. 7 nights. What took you so long? Red Tassel see Lin 7 nights back. A miso stand up from the sofa, said angrily, if you do not come back I am ready to go out to find you. When Chiemo lounging on the sofa yawned, and I can testify that in this half hour she has been talking about you at least 200 times. Lin Chia scratched his head a little sheepishly and went out for a late night snack. I'm sorry Red Tassel. Hong Ying sighed, forget it, go to bed early. When Chima you have to pay attention at night, protect the 7 nights. I know. When Chimo yawned again, with me in the living room no one wants to get in. Redding looked at the door, quietly sighed, Captain and Xiangnan old dog is really actually slipped back. No sense of decency. After saying that she turned back to the room. Lin 7 nights helpless smile also went back to his room. Pa. With a soft sound the lights of the villa went out and fell into darkness. Outside. The night sky is vast and the snow is swirling. The cold wind blows over the sleeping Songnan, carrying the snow all over the sky, whistling between the cities. From the villa but 100 meters of the church roof, Lingshuan quietly lying there, holding the sniper gun in his hands like a sculpture, watching everything around. Creak. Shoes in the snow sound came from behind him. Leng Xian suddenly turned back, the next moment froze in place. It's winter. Isn't it cold? With a cigarette in his mouth, Chen Mai walked slowly to his side and sat down. It's not cold. Lingshuan light answer. Brought you a coat. Wearing a black trench coat, Wu Xiangnan also sat beside Leng Xian, the hands of the coat on his body. Eyes fell on the distant villa. The corners of the mouth appeared a light smile. You're not going back to bed? Li Xuan asked. Sleep? Can't sleep. I heard 7 nights was fighting with Fat Boy today. How's it going? Leng Xuan paused for a moment, the corners of his mouth slightly raised. Very good, he has become stronger and now even I do not necessarily win him. Chen Mai smiled, not bad. You watch him all day. We'll do it tonight. No, you don't even have the stamina to be a sniper. Wu Xiangnan and Chen Mai looked at each other, smiled too ruefully and did not advise again. The roof of the church fell silent. Without words the 3 men sat quietly watching the villa in the distance, not moving. The fluttering snow fell upon them. Under the dead night sky. The snow piled up on them. Gradually they turned into 3 snowmen. And the patron saint of the city. Chapter 122, The Second Patient. The Asylum of the Gods. In the clean, bright courtyard, Nix, dressed in a crepe dress, sat in a white rocking chair that swayed gently with the passing breeze. She closed her eyes and seemed to enjoy it. Grandma, it's time for your medicine. Li Yifei, dressed in a green nurse's suit, walked gently with the tray. Yes. Nix obediently nodded, took the medicine in the hands of Li Yifei, swallowed up one by one. Oh fly. What's wrong, Grandma? You say that, when is this Danada's kid gonna give Grandma another grandchild? This way you have more brothers, life will be more lively. Fly, why aren't you talking? Grandma, your son's never gonna find a wife. You don't say that about your own father. Nix glared at him, assuming the posture of an elder, and the boy Danada's, though a little cold in character, was still very good-looking. You're right. Just when Li Yifei rolled his eyes and dealt with Nix, Lin Kinites dressed in a white coat came over unhurriedly. Danada's, you came back to see me? Nix saw Lin 7 nights, his face suddenly smiled. Mother. Lin 7 nights smiled and walked forward. These days how is the body? All right. Lin Chia looked at the treatment progress bar on the top of Nix's head, still staying at 78%, since half a year ago to help her break through 51%. The treatment progress is growing more and more slowly, and now it has been almost a month has not moved. Has the therapeutic effect of drugs reached its limit? Lin 7 nights thought. If his guess is correct, if you want to better promote the progress of Nix's treatment, just rely on this small mental hospital is not good. After all, Nix is a heart disease, want to be completely cured or need to go to the outside world to think of a way. But unfortunately he has been in the training camp for half a year, after the lesson of the last time, and dare not let Nix out casually, want to continue to promote the progress of treatment. It is estimated that only after the completion of the training camp. Mother, I need you to rest. I have some work to do. Lin 7 nights with Nix chat for a while. Gave Li Yifei a look. 2 people went to the direction of the sick building. Li Yifei surprised to open his mouth. Why come here? Don't any of these doors open? That was before. Lin Chia pushed the flat light mirror on the bridge of the nose, and now I have broken through the spiritual realm, maybe I can open the next door. The next door? What's in the door? Lin Chia walked to the floor where the 6 wards were located, stopped at the door of the second room, looked up at the sign on the door that looked like a pen but not a pen, like a staff but not a staff, and slowly began to speak. Who knows, this hospital is about to have a second patient. Li Yifei stared big eyes. I want more than one, grandma? Not necessarily. Who knows what it is this time? Lin Chia shook his head. The dean of D get a raise for one more patient? Oh. Li Yifei sighed, can only recognize their own life of labor, silently back 2 steps, the door of the space left to Lin Chia. Lin Chia stood in front of the second ward, took a deep breath and slowly put his hand on the handle. If his guess is correct, each door here corresponds to a state of its own, and now that he has broken through into the pond, his mental power may have been enough to open the prohibition on this second door. Behind the first door was a melancholy night goddess, and behind the second door, what could it be? Lin 7 Knights, with a full heart of doubt, pulled down the door handle. Click dash. There was a crisp sound of machine running, the rune prohibition all over the door dispersed at the same time, and the door slowly opened. And sure enough, Lin Chia conjecture is correct. The 6 doors here correspond to the 6 realms of Zhan, Pool, River, Sea, Infinite and Klein. Now he's qualified to release a second patient. The old door issued a harsh buzz. Lin 7 Knights, with the gradual opening of the door, looking toward the dark room behind Li Yifei, also stretched his neck. Want to see what his second grandmother is also? In the dark room, a young man dressed in a dark blue robe was sitting there quietly, slightly tilted his head, a pair of deep eyes staring at Lin Chia like a sculpture, as if it had never moved for thousands of years. He had an ordinary Western face that could not be more ordinary, but his eyes were imprinted in the heart of Lin Chia like rivets. Lin Chia still remembers that when she opened the door of Nix's ward, her eyes were only dull and confused, but now this man, his eyes were not clouded at all, but had an ineffable wisdom and calmness. There you are. The man in the dark blue robe spoke calmly, his voice a little hoarse. Lin 7 Knights raised eyebrows. You know I'm coming? Yes. The man nodded slightly. It's not quite like what happened at Nix. Lin 7 Knights see this mysterious man's performance, secretly thought, and then the eyes fell on the back of the ward on the wall. At some point, a few lines of small print appeared on the wall. Ward 2. Patient. Merlin. Task. Help Merlin cure mental illness. When the treatment progress reaches the specified value, 1%, 50%, 100%, you can randomly draw part of Merlin's ability. Current treatment progress. After reading these words, Lin Chia looked at the man wearing a dark blue robe, and his eyes were suddenly complicated. Merlin. The legendary wizard who exists in English mythology. About English mythology, Lin Chia knows too little. After all, in the past 100 years, when many continents have fallen into the fog, the study of foreign mythology books and experts are less and less. If not, the Master Merlin's name is really some loud, coupled with his knowledge reserve is still more, he really may not know this character. As the legendary wizard who helped King Arthur to the throne in English mythology, Merlin can be said to be the ancestor of the British wizard world. He is not only proficient in almost all types of magic, but also said to be able to predict the future, powerful and wise. However, as Lin Chia knows, the so-called Merlin is not just a person, but the English people have integrated many legends and mythic elements, and the legendary mage in front of them should not only be the wise man who helped King Arthur to take the throne, but also the god created by the English people's yearning for the unknown. The gods of magic and wisdom. Lin Chia looked up at the sign on the door again, and now he finally understood what the staff painted on it meant. Then again, the first ward offered a Greek myth, the second an English myth. Is it possible that the 6 rooms here represent 6 different mythological systems? So, one of these. Is there a myth that belongs to Bactria? Chapter 123. The Real World? What is it? Turns out it was a man. Li Yifei put his head out and looked at it, whispering a word. Merlin, sitting quietly in his chair, looked at him. There was a faint glow in his eyes, and the next moment his body, hidden under his dark blue robes, twisted violently. In the blink of an eye, she became a blonde and blue-eyed sylph. Gender, it means nothing to me. Merlin's soft voice sounded, let the door of Li Yifei directly dumbstruck. The dean of this. Li Yifei stretched out his hand and pointed to Merlin, stuttering his mouth. Lin Chia did not seem surprised by this. He shook his head and slowly opened his mouth. He's Merlin, the legendary sorcerer of metamorphosis. Let alone a woman, let him turn into your father. Lin Chia just fell. Merlin's body twisted up again. Rapid expansion. The body of the dark blue robe is also rapidly larger, but this robe also do not know what material is made. No matter how his body expands, cannot tear. A piece of snake scales appeared on his body, the scarlet snake letter spewing, but in a moment's time, Merlin became a difficult snake demon several times larger than Li Yifei's original body. This dark blue robe of the snake demon squatting in the chair, a pair of vertical pupils staring at Li Yifei eyes, an invisible pressure came on Li Yifei body, let him could not help but shake. Lin Chia turned to look at Li Yifei. This is your father? I don't know. Li Yifei muttered back half a step. I don't know what my father looks like. He can see who you really are and he can see what your father looks like. Is this the power of prophecy? Lin Chia sighed, his eyes fell on the snake demon and calmly opened his mouth. Lord Merlin, you should change back and we'll talk about it. The serpent nodded slightly, shook his body and became that ordinary young man again, sitting quietly in a chair. In the dark room, the two people looked at each other silently, and the air suddenly fell silent. Are you Lin Chia? Merlin spoke slowly. You know me? 10 years ago I predicted that you would open this door. Lin Chia heard such a divine stick words, immediately came to interest. Then you look again. How about my future? Merlin shook his head, wondering. Don't you know how to predict? Prophecy is not a panacea. Merlin looked at the eyes of Lin Seven Knights. When you just opened the door I tried to spy on your fate, but your past, future, are a blur. Only now can spy one or two. No. Lin Chia raised eyebrows. What is my now like? You are now in a dangerous spiral. One wrong move and you will be broken, and this may involve the people around you. Lin Seven Knights' eyes gradually dignified up. Any clearer? I can't see. Merlin shook his head. I can't make too precise a prediction now. But I lost my crystal ball. I lost it? Lin was stunned for 7 nights. Merlin seemed to think of something, the mouth of a bitter. 10 years ago a little girl came to this room with me, said that if I win she will let me leave, but if I lose I will give her the crystal ball. And you lost? Lin Chia's eyes gradually lit up. That little girl is not 12 or 13 years old, long black hair and a strange grain on the back of the hand? Right. Lin Seven Knights meditate for a moment. What did you compare? A bitter, prophetic, or extrapolation? How does that compare? Li Yifei could not help asking. We start with a fallen leaf, extrapolate the changes of the entire forest over the past 50 years now and in the next 50 years with no winner, and then extrapolate stones, water droplets. Later we found that no matter how we compared foreign things, we could not compete with each other, so we simply took each other as our goal and deduced everything about each other. In the second round she successfully promoted part of my fate trajectory, but in the third round I failed to see through her. Merlin frowned more and more as he recalled the situation. She exists completely out of my expectation. Neither past, present, nor future can be found. She was like a ghost out of this world, and no matter how I tried I could not pry into a corner of her fate. So, I lost. Li Yifei swallowed, with his hand arch Lin Seven Knights' small voice. So evil? Who's that girl? I don't know. Lin Chia shook his head, his brow also locked. There is no doubt that the girl who won Merlin's crystal ball, the girl who won the Nyx bracelet, and the girl who left the envelope in the dean's room are the same person, the memorial. How can a girl of 12 or 13 win the goddess of the night in creation, and win the great prophet Merlin in the derivation of fate? The more we understand, the more Lin Seven Knights feel that the girl who claims to be a memorial is full of mystery. If we can find out who she is, then the origin of this mysterious mental hospital of the gods may be able to reveal. However, for Lin Chia now it seems to be too early to explore this. Now the first thing we need to do is find a way to cure this legendary wizard and extract some of his powers. Lin Seven Knights slightly gnawed, carefully observed Merlin for a while. A little doubt emerged between the eyebrows. Merlin's situation is not the same as Nyx, at least so far he has not shown any mental problems, so where should he start? After hesitating for a moment, Lin Chia looked into Merlin's eyes and spoke earnestly. What's wrong with you? Merlin frowns. You're sick. Why are you here if you're not sick? I don't know. Merlin shrugged. I'm just a scholar trying to find out what the world really is. The face of the world? What do you think the world is, and what are we? Waiting for Lin Seven Knights to open his mouth, Merlin said on his own, for the deep-sea fish, the sea water and deep-sea creatures are their world. They do not know that outside the ocean, there is the existence of land, and they do not know that there are organisms on the land that are completely different from them. For two-dimensional creatures, the world is a plane, and their very existence limits their worldview. and they cannot imagine that beyond the plane, there are three-dimensional creatures watching their actions. For deep-sea fish, the ocean is their world, and for two-dimensional creatures, the plane is their world. But is the world they think is the real world? Not really. Then how do you know that this world, as we know it, is the real world? What is true reality? What is the real world? Beyond this world, what is it? And what are we under the observation of creatures at higher latitudes? Merlin's eyes gradually hot up. In his eyes, Lin's 7 Nights clearly saw the fire called knowledge. He stood up from his chair, pointing to the sky with one hand, holding Lin Chia's wrist with one hand, staring into his eyes and opening his mouth word by word. Have you ever thought that maybe, is the world we live in just a creation of a higher being? Chapter 124, The Jellyfish. In Merlin, a series of brainwashing, Lin 7 Nights and Li Yifei all stay in place. This world we live in, it's not real, you know? Lin 7 Nights' expression is strange. Right. Do you have proof? Isn't this proof that our myths have suddenly appeared in your world? Lin 7 Nights rubbed the corners of his eyes. Suddenly feel, Merlin seems to have a point. But if the world we live in is false, does that mean we are false? Li Yifei could not help speaking. Yep, I agree. Merlin nodded, of course. In this case, how can you, a false being, question the reality of the world? Li Yifei paused. Just like you said, fish will not question the creatures outside the ocean, two-dimensional creatures will not question the world outside the plane. Well, when you begin to question that the world is false, your very existence, is it still false? Merlin heard Li Yifei's words like a lightning strike, direct petrochemical in place. Lin's 7 Nights look at Li Yifei, eyes instantly changed. You know philosophy? He asked Li Yifei's ear. No, I just don't get it. Li Yifei scratched his head. Lin's 7 Nights great meaning to look at him and turned to look at Merlin. You said you are a scholar looking for the real world, then you found it? Merlin's eyes are shining again. Found it. He said with certainty that I do not know how long ago. I have used magic to communicate a mysterious plane, although I do not know where it is, but I can vaguely predict that it is the real world. What's that world like? It seemed to be at the bottom of the sea, and there were all sorts of little houses in the shape of pineapples, of human heads, of shops selling strange foods, and there seemed to be a strange yellow square. Merlin began to recall what he saw and heard at that time. His eyes widened, and his body began to twitch involuntarily. Lin's 7 Nights frown found that things are not simple, with Li Yifei silently back half a step. The real world. I saw the real world. Merlin's excited hands and feet danced wildly, and the calm and wisdom of his eyes had long disappeared, replaced by a strange madness. His body twisted violently, and for a moment, it turned into a pink starfish. He reached out a grasp. The law staff beside the chair became a fishing net, quickly ran to the side of Lin Chia, dancing. SpongeBob SquarePants. Let's go catch jellyfish. Send Big Star. Merlin around Lin's 7 Nights turned a few circles, and then with the fishing net quickly ran out of the sick building. Running in the yard, running, he jumped up. The hand of the fishing net dance. It seems to catch some invisible things. Suddenly he saw Nick sitting in a rocking chair in a daze. Plankton. Plankton. Are you here too? The Big Star. Merlin came to Nick's side and asked happily. Nick stared blankly at the unidentified pink object, lost in thought. After a moment she reached out her trembling hand, put the Big Star. Merlin into her arms, and opened her mouth with tears. Are you my grandson too? Plankton. My grandson. Plankton. Grandchild. Grandma's here. The two people who saw everything on the second floor. Lin Chia. Li Yifei. I think I know what's wrong with him. Lin's 7 Nights silently looking at this scene. Quiet opening. How can I say? Li Yifei scratched his head so it seemed a little inexplicable. Lin Chia pushed the plain glasses on the bridge of his nose and said in the tone of a doctor. In the long process of exploration, the real world has become Merlin's heart demon. In order to find it, Merlin used prophecy and magic countless times, and finally did not know what strange array connected the so-called real world, and sent his own consciousness to the past. Whether that world was real or not, I don't know, but there is no doubt that it had some strange effect on his mental consciousness, which eventually led to insanity. So what do we do? Li Yifei felt a headache. I don't know. Lin's 7 Nights shook his head. After all, he is not really a psychiatrist, although he can reason about things, but how to treat he is really ignorant. Do we have to go back to Sunnyside and do it again? But it's the new year and those doctors in the psychiatric department will probably be off, right? Lin's 7 Nights looked at the Merlin alive and kicking below, slowly sighed. He was normal until he mentioned the real world, and now this is probably just a short-term symptom. Anyway, let's just sedate him, see if we can get him back on his feet because it's too much. Who's going? What do you think? A humble little nurse who had been squeezed by a shady boss sighed and walked alone in the direction of the medical room. After a while, Li Yifei carried a large syringe and ran after the big star Merlin all over the ground. Nix also followed closely behind, shouting, "Hey Fly. That's your brother. You can't do that." The three men chase around the yard for a while, and finally Li Yifei succeeds in injecting the tranquilizer into Merlin's body. The latter suddenly becomes quiet, changes back into his human form, swings on the road for a while and sits down on the ground. Li Yifei also tired sitting on the ground, gasping for breath. Stop. It's so fucking tired. Lin 7 Nights walked forward, confirmed the state of Merlin, found that he is just a little vague consciousness, should be the sequelae of just confusion of consciousness and nothing serious. Although Merlin's illness is serious, it does not last for a long time, at least when it is not mentioned in the real world. It is still normal communication, so there is no need to worry too much, and now the main problem is to think of a cure first. He patted Li Yifei on the shoulder. "Take care of them, I go first." Then in the eyes of Li Yifei, Lin 7 Nights disappeared behind the door of the hospital. Early in the morning, Lin 7 Night woke up from the bed, raised his eyes to look out of the window. I do not know when, the window is already a piece of snow coated. Did it snow so much last night? Lin Chia muttered a whisper, went to the window, stopped to look. The street outside was already white, and there were large snowflakes falling slowly from the sky, congealing on the edge of the window and gradually melting. In Songnan such heavy snow is rare. When Lin Chia was ready to wash, he suddenly stopped, looked back to the corner of the house and gave a light E. In the corner, a small gray mouse was lying quietly motionless. Chapter 125. The Secret Man. Mouse. Lin Chia frowned slightly, just about to make a move when the mouse quickly darted into a small crack in the corner. So even such a big house attracts mice. Lin Chia shook his head slightly, not thinking much of it, and pushed the door open. Up so early? The lazy Wen Chimo, still lying on the sofa, was woken up by the sound of the door opening and yawned lazily. He's used to it in the camp. Lin Chia went downstairs and then noticed that Hong Ying's door was already open. He asked in surprise, "Where's Hong Ying? He got up even earlier than you." "She's in the backyard practicing shooting." When Chimo turned over and covered his head with a blanket. "You all are waking up earlier and earlier. Is there no consideration for other people's sleep? It's only a little past 5. Lin Chia. It's not that Lin Chia liked waking up early. It was the habit developed over the past 6 months in the camp, where he was called up by the guard's whistle before dawn, and sometimes even for training at 2 or 3 in the morning. Being able to sleep until after 5 was already a blessing. Lin Chia walked quietly into the backyard. A girl in a white practice outfit, holding a long spear and wearing her black hair in a high ponytail, moved swiftly through the open yard, her movements like a startled swan. The crimson tassel of the spear left traces in the air as the spear wind howled. As if sensing Lin Chia's arrival, Hong Ying lightly floated to the ground, elegantly retracted her spear, and walked towards him with a smile. "Wake. Yes. Has the pig on the sofa woken up? Seems not. Forget him, let's go. I'll make you breakfast and after eating we'll go buy groceries." Hong Ying seemed to think of something, licking her lips. "It's been a long time since I tasted the team leader's cooking since you went for training. Tonight we'll have a treat, hee hee hee." "Hong Ying, do you practice shooting this early every day?" Lin Chia asked in confusion. "Yes." Hong Ying nodded. "My master said that if martial arts are not practiced for a day, it's equivalent to 100 days of training lost. Since I started learning this spear, I've been practicing every morning for 12 years. 12 years? Lin Chia raised his eyebrows. "So, how old are you, Hong Ying?" Hong Ying's age had always been a mystery. From her appearance she should be about the same age as Lin Chia, maybe just 2 or 3 years older, which means she must have started practicing the spear when she was very young. Hong Ying stuck out her tongue and said with some irritation, "A girl's age is not something you can casually ask about." "I'm not telling you." Lin Chia helplessly followed Hong Ying into the house. She then kicked the sofa where Wen Chimo was sleeping and went into the kitchen to get busy. About 10 minutes later, a hearty breakfast was placed on the table. Si Xiaonan, who had been sleeping in the house, was also dragged up by Hong Ying and reluctantly sat at the table, half asleep while finishing breakfast. After the meal, Hong Ying, Lin Chia and Si Xiaonan went out to buy groceries, leaving Wen Qima at home, grimacing as he washed dishes and cleaned up, completely reduced to a tool. What they didn't notice was that in the corner of the ceiling of the house, a gray mouse was silently observing everything. Nangnan City. In the complex underground sewer system, dense swarms of mice surged like a tide. They moved silently and swiftly through the passages, arriving at a large, dark underground cavity. Weak sunlight filtered through the rusted iron grate at the top of the cavity, and a huge, heavy fan gently swayed, casting flickering shadows in the dim space. The air was filled with a faint smell of decay and chemicals. In the center of this underground cavity, there was a blood-stained operating table. Next to it were neatly arranged several surgical knives, axes, and even a chainsaw with 2 buckets of formalin-soaked bizarre body parts nearby. A giant snake head with unseeing eyes and a lizard with only half a body. On another stone platform, a boy in a black cloak with a hood was quietly sitting. In front of him was a chessboard with black and white pieces scattered, but the opposite side was empty. Rustling sounds. A large number of mice poured in from a narrow passage, surrounding the stone platform, black and oppressive. They lay quietly as if paying homage to their king. The boy held a black piece in his hand, his gaze falling on the surrounding mice as he murmured. The 4th-generation artificial snake demon neurons match my mental power much better than the 3rd generation, initially creating a visual sharing system similar to the Nandu snake demon and the snake species. However, to achieve the strong infectiousness of the snake demon, more experiments and improvements are needed. He slowly placed the black piece down, stood up from the stone platform, and walked to a cage filled with mice, reaching in to grab one. A faint glow appeared at his fingertips, entering the mouse's head. The mouse instantly fainted, and after a few seconds, its body trembled and then woke up again. Immediately, the mouse quickly climbed down his hand and fell into the vast army of mice, bowing down respectfully. This ability comes from the snake species of the Nandu snake demon, allowing the link of consciousness with other creatures and controlling their actions, completing visual sharing. Unfortunately, now I can only implant the artificial snake demon neurons into mice. These 4th-generation artificial snake demon neurons will be temporarily named fish species. With these more than 400 mice implanted with fish species, I will be able to fully control any movement in Nangnan City. If there's any mysterious appearance, I'll definitely find it before the night watchman. The boy slowly took off his hood, revealing an ordinary face, but if Lin Chia were here he would immediately recognize him. His name is Qingyu. The Qingyu who disappeared after joining forces with Lin Chia to deal with the Nandu snake demon, and was turned down when requesting to join the night watchman. Qingyu turned around, his gaze falling back on the chessboard, his eyes slightly squinted. From the shared vision of the fish species, the situation in Nangnan City is becoming increasingly subtle. He sat back next to the chessboard staring at the black and white pieces, deep in thought. Hidden strong ones from all over Daxiao, more than 10 from the Chuanjing former night watchman who escaped from the fasting place, the missing crazy scorpion mercenaries from 3 years ago, a woman suspected of being from the ancient god church, and even 2 deeply hidden Haijing strong ones. The waters in Nangnan are getting deeper. He picked up a white piece with his fingers, looking at the corner of the chessboard, his expression seeming a bit hesitant. These few pieces are in a very dangerous position. Should I remind Lin Chia? After a while he seemed to have made up his mind, slowly placing the white piece in the corner of the chessboard. After all, we've been through tough times together. I'll give you a hand.